Bruce Magoon. I've lived here in the county for nearly 25 years. We bought some property out here many years ago based upon the unique things that this part of the country offered to us. It was affordable living. It had beautiful countryside. It was a place that we could afford to live. The cost of living was not going to be too expensive. We could afford to pay taxes here. And those were all things that were important to us as we were starting out with trying to build a business and have a young family. We needed someplace that was affordable to live. It offered us opportunity. And so that's why we came to Hickman County, and that's why we're still here today. And I think for the most part, those things still exist, although I think it may be harder to do than it was when we came here 25 years ago. I spent 24 years in the Air Force in service to my country. Went to the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs and spent 20 years as an Air Force pilot and test pilot training in Texas, a number of assignments overseas. I have a significant amount of combat time, decorated combat veteran from Desert Storm, Desert Shield. Spent a lot of time behind the Iron Curtain back in the 80s. I was a Blinn Quarter qualified pilot. I've been around every country in Europe, North Africa, the Middle East. So it's a great experience for a young person to do those things, see a lot of different things, experience a lot of different stuff, and thankful to be where I am today. So while I was in the service is when I purchased the property out here originally, and then I took my last assignment as a charge of all the propulsion testing for the Air Force and the government, not just the Air Force, but for the government at Arnold Engineering Development Center in Tullahoma, Tennessee. So not far from here. There weren't any airplanes there, so not much of a flying job from that standpoint, but it was close to what was now home here in Hickman County and provided me the opportunity to transition the family here into the local system and the local church and local schools while I finished out the rest of my military career. So a lot of great opportunities there too that can translate to opportunities here in Hickman County based upon what we were doing at Arnold Engineering Development Center, ADC, and the number of different things that the outside community did to support that are things, there's some similar things can be done here as well. So I started a number of different businesses while I've been here in the county. I had Lewis County Feed Company, which was actually in Hohenwald in Lewis County, hence the name, and did that for several years and transitioned that and sold it to a friend of mine who had retired from the service and needed a job, had a family support, so I essentially, for a small donation, sold him that business, and he ran it for many, many years down there. We had small farming operations, which we still have today, and it's a very nice business. We've had a trucking logistics business that we've had here that grew to be more than what I had intended it initially to be, and it needed a bigger home someplace else with better roads and infrastructure. It really was, and so it's been moved, and it's now Mount Juliet today. So had an opportunity once I sold the trucking logistics company to go off and run a very historic aviation and safety transportation business. Started by a couple of brothers named Orville and Wilbur, and a guy named Glenn Curtis Wright. It became in the research arm of that company after World War II. Grew to be a $1.4 billion in sales, a lot of neat things. They invented the crash test dummy. Used to use cadavers to do safety work in vehicles. Kind of a messy job. You could use them once, and hard to get people to show up to work every day when you do that kind of work. So they invented the crash test dummy out of necessity to be able to do more testing of vehicles to look for injuries and make cars and vehicles safer. The first people did electronic fingerprinting, all sorts of neat kinds of things. So I took that business over, and after the trucking company, I ran that for 4 years, and keeping my home here, and then I retired and left from that. So I have a very broad background from a business standpoint: retail, research and development, manufacturing, service. I think that it helps provide me with some experience that would help the county of what we really need. What's the reason why I'm running, right? I mean, there are lots of great people out there who are running for office. We have quite the candidate field this time, not just for this office, but for other offices, and it's great to see that. So there are definitely some clear choices out there for folks in terms of the folks that are running for election. In terms of the mayor's race, there's some very distinct differences between myself and the other candidates. There's some great folks out there. I've met every one of them finally, had a chance to do that. Spoke with Danny Clark this morning, and Mark Bentley I've known for years, and had a chance to meet with Dusty Jordan and Mr. Bates and Chesser and Mark Qualls and some other events throughout this time period. So they're all great folks. I think that there's no real issues with these folks in terms of character issues, which is nice to see. However, there's some huge differences between the rest of the candidate field and myself, some huge differences. Most of these folks have been involved in the past in some of the issues we have today, in terms of either the local government, in terms of our school system, and there are some significant issues with where we are and why we are who we are today. And part of it is because of this past leadership and the situation we find ourselves in. So I would tell you that the biggest difference between the rest of the candidate field and myself is experience. It's clearly experience. It's going to be two things. It's going to be leadership and business experience. As the mayor, you're going to be the chief financial officer for the county. It's a hugely important job. This shouldn't be the first foray into managing millions of dollars of property or actual dollars in terms of budgets. If this is your first time doing that, this is not the place to be learning this job. And if you haven't done that in the past, you don't need to be trying to do it now. You can look at the current situation we have today as an exact example of why that's bad, clearly. If you look at what we spent last year, last year's budget, we spent $3 million on servicing debt. Look at how much money we brought in. Only $1 million in wheel tax and $8 million in property tax, and so a third of it is going to service debt. Why is that? Because we keep making poor decisions on what to do with the limited resources we do have, and we end up borrowing money to go farther into debt and making poor decisions. So you need somebody that has experience, that knows, has managed this type of money before, and this is very small compared to the other businesses I've owned, and other work I've done for the government and other people. So this county budget's pretty small in comparison to what I've done in the past and done very successfully. The amount of property that the county owns, the fiscal value of that is rather small in comparison to the other billions of dollars worth of infrastructure that I've had to manage and be custodial of before. So I think the important thing is an experience here. That's what sets me clearly apart from every other candidate out here. So the financial piece of this is huge. You have to manage this kind of money. You need to know how to do this kind of work. And the other thing that's very important is you need to figure out how to leverage these dollars to make some kind of synergistic effect. If you've only got this much to work with, you got to figure out how do I get this much bang out of this much buck. If you haven't had to do that, and you haven't done that successfully in the past, this is going to be a tough place to learn it. And I fear you're not going to learn it, and you're going to be the same place we are now, maybe worse, 4 years from today, with any of these other candidates. They're great people, but they don't have this kind of experience. Okay? The other thing is going to be leadership experience. If you've never hired and fired people both, this is not the job to be learning that in. So, great people. But if you don't have this kind of leadership experience in large and diverse organizations that have complex issues, this is not the place to be learning it, right? In some ways, this is a great leadership challenge. The real reason I have nothing to gain from this. There's nothing in this job for me, nothing, absolutely nothing. I don't need the money, I don't want the money, don't need it. If they have to pay me, I'll find somebody to donate it to. There's plenty of 501c3s and good charitable organizations here in the county that could all use some of that money back. So there's nothing in this for me other than the neat leadership challenge that it provides. That I'm totally interested in. So when you look at dealing with the county legislature, the 21 county commissioners that we have, and you look at working within the individual committees and the other parts of government that we have out there, looking with other agencies, I think it's a tremendous leadership opportunity. But if you haven't had these kinds of experiences in the past, I've run large organizations. I've had very diverse operations underneath my span of control. It takes a special leadership style. You'll have to be able to adjust your style based upon the challenges you find. Not everybody reacts the same way. If I'm trying to work with you and another individual here, we're all kind of different folks. I've got to figure out how to best to work with you, right? If I can convince you that this is your idea, not my idea, it's going to get done. So it's all a matter of how you take from your past experience and things that have been successful and things that have not worked quite so well, and try and use those experiences, especially in these large, diverse organizations, to make sure that you're effective in creating change, the right kind of change, right? The positive things that are going to help move the county forward and help improve the quality of life for the citizens that we serve. I'm proud of the family I've raised. It's been a difficult journey, obviously. You're still young probably, and maybe new at this, but I've been around at it a while. So my wife and I have three biological children, and we have 3 adopted children. So early in life was about us and the things we could do and the places we could travel and the things we could see. And we weren't into material things. We were surely into traveling a whole lot and skiing and whatever we could find to amuse ourselves in some place different we hadn't been before. When we kind of grew up a little bit and decided that life was not just about us, and that we had some responsibility here to help raise the next generation and give of ourselves, we've both been very fortunate in life, then we decided to have a family. And so my wife is pregnant with our first child, and we had done a lot of volunteer work, especially with disadvantaged children in hospitals and kids and foster programs, because we always felt a need to kind of give back, and we'd been fortunate and we had time and we had resources to do those kinds of things. And so especially my wife had done a lot of volunteering with some disadvantaged kids and different things in the Boot Heel, Missouri, and some places that were a little where we were living at the time. Always do it where we were living. I feel that that's the way we're supposed to be charitable. The world is what you know it. So if there's somebody in your own backyard that needs some help, that's what you're being called to provide. There was a young family that of 3 kids. They were 5, 3, and 15 months at the time, and their parents became institutionalized, and so these kids were thrown into foster care. Their parental rights were taken away, and they were looking for a home. There's 3 of them, and so and they were looking for adoptive families. So we agreed to go through the process, and we were chosen as the adoptive family, which is truly an amazing thing. And something that's is kind of disturbing in a lot of ways in terms of our society we have today when it comes to adoption and these types of things. The number of children that are in Tennessee today in foster care that need good homes that are available for adoption is astounding. Astounding. Yeah. These kids cost you nothing to adopt. Nothing. They're all begging for homes, they're begging for love, they're begging for guidance, and the state's going to stand behind them. They'll provide them with health care, they'll provide you with any type of legal advice that you need and help defend your parental rights when you adopt these things if they're ever challenged in the future. They just want you to have, provide a good, healthy, loving home for these children. And people don't do it. Now, you want to adopt a baby, you'll pay $50,000, $60,000, you'll fly to China, you'll do all this kind of stuff, and you'll pay tons of money. Meanwhile, in your own backyard, there's 400 babies out there, but these 400 babies are now 700, 800 days old, right? Or 3 or 4 years old, or whatever it might be. They're no longer babies, and now nobody wants them.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody wants them.
Yeah.
And there's a tremendous need for that. So my wife and I did. We signed up for this. And at first, they ask you these little things, are you willing to take sibling groups? And we said, yeah, that's how much thought we give this, and then, all these kinds of things. If you're listening, I'm willing to take children with disabilities. Sure. We thought there were some things that we could probably handle better than others, but, sure. So anyway, then these 3 children came up, and they said, are you willing to, would you like to interview for these kids? How many are there? Well, there's 3. Ooh. Sure. Yeah. How old are they? Right. Well, 5, 3, and 15 months. It sounds like 2 of them are still in diapers. Oh, yeah, they are. Yeah. Oh, okay. And so it was. So we went up and we did the interview, and of course we're all alone, just my wife and I. We're in Missouri, and we go in front of this board. Some elderly ladies. There was all ladies in this interview, my wife and myself, and they just start asking you questions. So they go through the financial background, make sure that you can afford to feed the kids, and then they start asking you parenting questions. Of course, we don't. My wife's pregnant. We don't know anything about parenting. Feed them breakfast in the morning, find them something to do during the day, and we'll just love them, how hard can it be, right?
Right.
And so, do you have parents to help you? Oh, no, we don't. Oh, so you're going to be just you 2 of you? Yeah. And you see, you both work? Yeah, we'll just, my wife flies from American, and I'm an Air Force pilot. You can take care of these kids? Oh, of course, we'll figure it out.
Right.
So,
plus your own, and
yeah, so we leave there, send traipse out of Missouri, we come back to where we're living in the Boot Heel at the time, and we stop at Lambert's, home of the Throwed Rolls, Sykeston, Missouri. Great place, you ever been there? Throw the bread across the room, and anyway. So we eat dinner there, and it's my wife and I just going, well, I guess God just didn't intend for that to, to work for us. I'm just convinced it was just a terrible interview. Which was just brutally honest with people.
Yeah.
No, yes, well, we're gonna do the best we can.
Yeah. And so you got them.
Yeah, and so, so we get home and we walk in and it's late because we've stopped and ate dinner and so forth. And the phone's ringing. Back in those days, we actually had, phones that rang and you dialed on them. Seems like ancient history. So I picked the phone and the lady says, "This is Bruce?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "This is Lynn Cairns. I'm the adoption specialist from Missouri." I said, "Hey, Lynn, well, I know we weren't going to tell anybody until, this is like on a Friday, until Monday." I thought, well, they're just telling us we're not, yeah, I'm expecting this phone call kind of thing. He says, "I just letting you know that we've chosen you as the adoptive family."
Wow. Wow, that's great.
I could have dropped the phone. "Lynn, this is Bruce, right?" Yeah. Tell Diane congratulations. "Oh, okay, great." But it's just such a wonderful feeling, and that's the.
And
I would say that changed my life in terms of who I was at the time and who I am today.
Yeah.
So you go from being self-consumed in terms of education and travel and all these great opportunities and experiences and so forth, which is great. Getting married, you and the wife, just the wife, and we're enjoying each other and enjoying all these great things we get to do. We've both got good jobs. And then we decide, there's more important things than just us. My wife becomes pregnant, and these children come up for adoption, and we do this. And then it really sinks in, there is a better purpose in life for you. And that was it. It changed our entire life. The best thing I ever done, So you go from being self-consumed to being understanding that, the world is not about you. Yeah. It's really not. And these kids will remind you that every day.
Yeah, we just have a 9-month-old one if you've seen her around.
Yeah, sure.
It's
big wonderful.
Change just for one.
Yeah. So it goes from my wife and I to us and these 3 children, right? So there's Curtis, Candace, and Chris. They're 5, 3, and 15 months. 2 of them still in diapers. And some special needs here and so forth along the ways because of past abuses and neglect. And I won't get into all that. But anyway, so there's good things to do. And then this is in May of '92. I have been accepted to go to law school at Vanderbilt. I have put in my notice to the Air Force that I'm leaving. I came back from the desert from the war and over there and hanging up my flying boots and that kind of stuff. I'm going to go to law school. My wife is working for American Airlines, and they're going to have a base here in Nashville. Life's going to be good. We're going to come here to Middle Tennessee, and life is grand. Well, then she becomes pregnant. We adopt these 3 kids.
Totally changes things.
And I'm looking at this in May of '92 and saying, this is not the time for me to quit my day job.
Yeah, wow.
And my wife's going to have time off, obviously, with the pregnancy, and now we have all these young kids to take care of. So I had the good fortune of having another opportunity to go to test pilot school at Edwards in California, so I took that. So instead of getting out and going to law school in Vanderbilt, I ended up going to Edwards to be going to test pilot school. So we've got these 3 children. They've just been placed in our home May 15th. 1992. On June 15th, we moved to California. On the 1st of August, my wife's niece, whose wife's sister becomes institutionalized, who's 13, and she comes to live with us.
Wow.
And in January, our first biological child, Catherine, is born. So on May 14th of 1992, it's just my wife and I.
Yeah.
2 airplanes, a couple of horses, life is grand,
Yeah.
To January 29th,
You got all these kids.
1993. And there's Curtis, Candace, Chris, Catherine, Amanda, Diane, and myself, 7 of us. So it's a huge change. And so in the process of all this, obviously, it had a tremendous effect on who the person I am today. Obviously, of truly understanding God's purpose in your life, trying to understand that there's something more important than yourself out there, and then giving of yourself in every possible way to help those around you be successful, healthy, happy, all that kind of stuff. So it's just, it's a complete change in life, and one of the best things we've ever done.
Yeah.
We had 2 more children after that. We've fostered some other kids. We've helped out in many other ways, and continue to try and give as best we can. And so life is good. I think that we are very unfriendly when it comes to helping new business in this county. We are very unfriendly towards it. We are very judgmental about it. We are difficult to get along with. I've experienced this myself in this businesses I had here in this county. So it's no wonder we don't have a lot of new business here, because we do everything we possibly can to run them off. I think that's bad. If we want to be able to do better things in the county. We have to have means of paying for those things. And right now, the only thing we have here to tax is people. That's it. And people can only bear so much. You know, you're already paying one of the highest wheel taxes around. Your property taxes are significantly higher now than they were several years ago. Might have doubled in the last 4 years. What I'm paying today, what I paid 4 years ago, is twice. And while it's still not like it can be in other parts of the country, it doesn't need to be worse than that. You're going to drive people out so that people cannot afford to live here. The people who can afford to buy land here won't be people that live here. And that's not a very good situation. So if we want to do better, then we have to attract some new business. So I think for the people of this county to look at how the people who are trying to work a job or want to work and live in the county here have few choices outside of government. You can work for the school system, right? You can work for the sheriff's department. You can work for the public utility. And there's a few other small things in here, but there's not much. So if you want to make a decent living, you got to go someplace else. So sometimes that's not all bad. If you end up living up on Highway 7 and you're going down to Columbia, or you live out on 46 and you're going to Dixon, well, it's probably not a big deal. But if you live some other place in this county, it's a long ways to go. So, you know, I would think that it's important not just to have a job here in the county, but it's also important from the standpoint of being able to pay for certain programs and services that we'd like to have and need to improve. We've got to have some other kinds of tax base in order to be able to do that. And you're not going to ever do that if we continue to do things and approach business the same way we are today.
Yeah.
It's absolutely foolish the way we've done this in whole industrial development in this county. Speculating on property is foolish, expensive, and ineffective. Foolish, expensive, and totally ineffective. You can look at what's been done. You can see what's being done today. You can read about it in the paper. You can see the more debt we're taking on and what has it accomplished and how many jobs has it created, and look at where we are today. And you will see that this has been a tremendous travesty and waste of resources and the trust of the public in terms of how this is being done. And there's not any business there because of that.
Yeah.
It's wrong. It's clearly wrong. And it needs to stop, and it needs to change. They're going further into debt, putting the county farther into debt. For what? We tried to buy the spec building twice for businesses that we had who wanted to move to this county. We're told, well, we've got somebody we've shook hands with over, I think they're going to sell four-wheeler parts, and they're going to have 3 or 4 employees. Look, we got 40 to 60 FTEs here. This is millions of dollars in payroll every year.
Yeah.
And we want the building. Well, we've shook hands with somebody. Look, would you give us a contract? You know, I'll give you 30 days, and let us yes or no, and I have to go someplace else. So we went to Atlanta, went down to Fulton Industrial Boulevard down there.
Wow. Yeah.
Horrible. 2 years of that, and we said, no more. We're not, it's too far away. The crime and the conditions and so forth were just horrendous. First, let's talk about kind of what's the role of government and what's the role of the private sector. So I'm not going to, as a private sector person that I am today, I can create jobs. I do create jobs. I'm hiring today. You know, you come work for me, I'm going to start you at $17 an hour. That's the lowest paid person I have, and we go up from there. We provide good benefits and all those kinds of things. You know, we know how to pay people and take care of people. So as a private sector, I create jobs. As a government, I don't create jobs. If you're creating jobs in the government, you're creating tax liabilities for people. And that's not what we need. We don't need more tax liabilities. So that gets down to between the role of government and versus the private sector in terms of creating jobs. Now, as the purposes of this office and in this county and the particular challenges we face, I believe it's very important that you have a mayor that knows something about business and knows something about how to create business so they can do things to help foster and bring business to this particular county, as opposed to someplace else, opposed to going to Dixon or going to Humphreys County or Dixon County or someplace else, or Williamson County, right? So I think it's important that we do kinds of the right things. If you're trying to like your wish list of what kind of industries you want here, I think you'd much rather you have to look at what you can support, right? What do you have here? What kind of industry can you support in Hickman County today? You know, what kind of utilities do you have? What kind of water do you have? What kind of sewer do you have? What kind of roads do you have? What kind of workforce do you have? What can this workforce do? So what kind of educational system do you have? Where are people going to live? What are they going to do? So when you look at these kinds of things and you look at where we are, you say, man, this is pretty tough, right? This is pretty tough. It's not impossible to do it all. Not at all. I'm doing business here. You're doing business here. So we're already here. We're doing business, right? Look at these other entities and people that are running, and some of them are here doing business as well too, so that's good.
Yeah.
But now we have to figure out how do we expand upon that, and what can we support? And there are some things that we can and some things that we can't. Part of the job of the mayor would be to look at some of these things and look at things like land use regulations. Right? Some people like to call it zoning. I don't like the term zoning. I don't really care for zoning a whole lot. I don't think I should have the right to tell you what to do with your property anymore. You should have the right to tell me what I should do with mine. But there are some purposes for this, obviously. With it not just being incompatible land uses, which is kind of historically, I think, how it's looked at, but it can also be to kind of create places and so forth that are more attractive for business and public-private partnerships in terms of investment. So we can make places more attractive for business and make places more attractive for the right type of talented workers to come. And we can create these kinds of things that will help improve our opportunities and local economy. So this is what has to be done. It was a long way around getting around this conversation, but you know, I've been fortunate to live in a lot of different places in my life, here in this country and overseas and other places. One little place had this great little T. Marzetti salad dressing plant in it. It was the main center of this town. Most everybody in town worked at T. Marzetti. It was the water that it used from the public utility and so forth helped make it affordable for lots of other people in the community to have this public service. T. Marzetti decided that they didn't need this facility anymore and they closed it down. In the town's not recovered yet. They can't afford to keep the water going because they don't have this, you know, they built it all around this thing. So those are not the kinds of things you want to see. You'd rather see a little more diversity in things. You can look here in our own community, look at places like Levi's and Universal Fasteners, and when Levi's left, and then Universal Fasteners wasn't too far behind, and of course you had other things. You had Genesco and you had Tencon and Centerville Forge, and it's pretty bleak these days. Mighty Equipment was there. You can take a good tour around the county here and you can see, you know, that used to be there and used to be here, and it's pretty sad, the state of affairs that we have today and the loss of these things. What's been amazing to me in the time frame that I've lived here, most of those things have happened since I've lived in this county. So I was seeing it before and I've seen it now. What's been shocking to me is there's no real call to action, and there's been no real sense of urgency from the part of our community leaders here that says, hey, you know, we need something else. You know, what do we need to do here? How do we get something to come in here? What do we do with this old factory? What do we do with the old button plant? You know, how do we attract somebody to come here? And unfortunately, it's been too much infighting, too much, well, somebody else might benefit and we might not get this, and there's been no shared vision here. There's been no leverage of things between private and public sector. There's been no semblance of how to do those things or even need to do it. And so now a lot of these structures have rotted down, they're in worse shape, and now it's going to be even more difficult to get somebody to come in here than would have been 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So we've missed the boat in a lot of these things. Middle Tennessee has been going through this tremendous economic boom, and I've lived in other parts of the country and I travel a lot and so forth, and I'm telling you, this boom isn't everywhere. Yeah. But here in Middle Tennessee, it's booming, and there's a lot of good reasons why that's happening. This isn't going to last for forever, and it's booming around us. Yeah. You know, we're becoming this little pocket here that's somewhat untouched by this, and in some ways it's good. You know, we don't like to have all the traffic, we don't want all the trash, we don't want all the crime, but we would like a little money. And the only way we're going to get a little of this is we're going to have to do a little bit better. Yeah. So if we could have a half dozen businesses here that employ 20 to 40 to 60 people, something like that, maybe even 80, that'd be great. I think you're going to have a very difficult time trying to get a company to come here with hundreds of employees because you just don't have the facilities, you don't have the infrastructure to do that. Yeah. Now, you could do some things between the public and private sector. If you had some better land use type of vision, whether it be master plan is maybe not the proper term for that, but some kind of thing like that that says this is what we want to do, but it has to be something that's going to have to be a shared vision, not just by one person in this group, but it's going to be shared. Absolutely, right. And then you can go out and you first you got to take care of the business you have here. Yeah. Why is Sole Supports build a new factory not in Hickman County? So here's the company that we have in this county that's one of our great private employers, and they need to expand their business, and where do they go? They leave the county to do it. That's kind of a sad statement. That's on the current situation. Yeah. So we need to do something about that. So you start with those kinds of things. You've got Tubular Steel, which has the old signage plant down there, and what are they doing? They got this great thing that says they got 200 employees here. There's not been a car in that driveway in months. So what are they doing? Yeah. And why aren't they? What do we need to do to help them? Is there something that we need to help to facilitate that? So the mayor should play a very large role in the budgeting process. It's still going to be up to the county commissioners to pass the budget, but the mayor needs to help in terms of, I would think, putting things together, helping to facilitate options on that. Options, risk, and opportunities. That should be the purpose of you. When I go to the budget committee as your county mayor, I'm going to be talking about options, risks, and opportunities. I'm going to be sending these things to the people on that committee, along with suggested budgets and revenues and streams and so forth on how to do this stuff. And they're going to have to kind of sort it out what they want to do. I'm going to try and lead them down a certain path here that says, this is what we got, this is what we need, here's what we're going to do. So options, risks, and opportunities, and let them come up with it. And then it's up to the, then once the budget is passed, there you have the budget. Then you have to make sure that you're living within those means, right? So no different than anything else. This is how much you got, and this is how much you spend. If you got this much, you're not spending this much. Plus, this isn't your money. This money belongs to the people of the county, right? This is hard-earned treasure. So it needs to be looked after from that same standpoint, right? This is precious dollars, precious money. And make sure we're being the best stewards of this we can be. That's what we're called upon to be. So you need to make sure that, again, whoever's in this job is somebody that you can trust to be the best steward that they possibly can with what they've been entrusted. So it's just a matter of making sure that you're living within what's budgeted. I may not agree with something in this budget. If the legislature passes it, that's what it is, right? So you should be working your job beforehand. This is part of the job of the mayor as an ex officio, non-voting member of all these different committees, is to make sure that you're the full-time person. These people all have other jobs in the communities, they're retired or whatever else. You're the full-time person. So do some full-time work. Come there with, especially when it comes to the budget, with how we're going to do certain things, or what are the appropriate things to be paying for here? Are there things that we can get away, or things that are wasteful or not being effective with our dollars? And then so you should be presenting this stuff to these people so that they have some good information from which to make better decisions. If you want the county commission to make better decisions, then help provide them with some better information so they can do that, or some better options and risks and opportunities along the way so that it's very clear what they're doing. But you're not getting that now. You need an effective leader, somebody who knows how to do these types of things, provide those to the county commissioners. Not just somebody that's going to get along and hold hands and, oh, they respect me and they like me and so forth. That's great. But at the end of the day, we need to be effective. You need to be an effective steward of these resources. And that's how you do those kinds of things. So you got to make sure you live within your means. You can't just go ask for more money. Well, gee, I guess we didn't keep that budget. We're supposed to spend $70,000 on industrial development. Well, we need 170-some thousand. Well, no, that's a true story, right? I mean, you can see it. It's clearly in there. It's in the minutes, and it's not how we've been good stewards of that money. When it comes to things like going into debt because we don't have the money to pay for stuff, like with this industrial property, which is clearly wrong, you have to be strong voice in the room, and you have to stand up and say, no, this is not right. Yeah. We're not going to sign a warrant to go borrow more money. We're already this far in debt. We spent $3 million over $9 million brought in last year on debt service alone, and we're going to go do more of this now? Yeah. For what purpose? Yeah. It's completely different if it's an investment because so-and-so has said they're coming. We have 60 FTEs. This is going to have a $4 million annual payroll. We are coming to Hickman County. Here's what we'd like to have. Here's what we're going to do. We'll sign a statement to this effect or whatever kind of contract you want us to do, but we need to have three-phase power at this location here. We need to have a 6-inch sewer line, and we need to have X number of gallons of water available and these kinds of things. So we need to make sure it's zoned for this. Okay, now we know what you need, and we can go out. Now, I don't have a hard time from the standpoint of obligating the county for that specific, for this kind of return. Yeah. But to do it like it's being done, foolish and ineffective. Well, I think if you have an opportunity for somebody to get something, a grant is not something you have to pay back. You have to make sure that what kind of strings are attached to that, right? A lot of times people aren't giving you something just because sometimes sometimes those specific purposes are things that we can live with and the things that we want. For example, if you look at the municipal airport here, because Federal Express is a great company that has its home in Tennessee and it pays a lot of money in fuel tax, and because our state is so wonderful in terms of managing its money and its resources and targeting this dollar, that dollar is going for aviation, that dollar goes to aviation. Like other parts of the country and so forth that don't do those kinds of things, Tennessee's pretty good about that. So we have grant money available to our community here in Hickman County every year to the tune of thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for infrastructure improvements. So I think we have $690-some thousand available to us this year if we want it. It's a grant, but it's a 95-5. So 95% of the grant money, or the cost, 95% of the cost of the project is provided by this grant. We have to come up with 5%. And it has to be used for these purposes. Tremendous infrastructure opportunities to do wonderful things. to help improve our community, to help create jobs, to help create educational opportunities, all these kinds of things. We're only limited by our own imagination. And you know how much of that money we're taking advantage of today?
Yeah.
Okay? Why is that? Poor and ineffective leadership. Okay? Poor and ineffective leadership. People cannot figure out how to communicate clearly to the people who are going to make decisions, whether it be in the city or the county, and I know this is mostly a city issue, about why this is important. We can take this money and we can create jobs with this money. And I'm not talking $8.25 an hour jobs working at Sonic. I'm talking about $30 an hour jobs working as an A&P mechanic here in this county, in a facility that would be first class. It costs us 5% of the investment, and how much do we get in return? Tremendous. So I think grants can be very good things. I think you have to look at what are the strings attached, what do I have to do? And then I think you should go after all those things that are possible for you to get. Look, we need lots of things. Okay? We need lots of things, and we need lots of help. I'd much rather take a grant from somebody over here than to have to ask you to pay more in tax, especially with something that we really need. Absolutely, right? I mean, this is the lowest form of government we have. What's below this level? There is none, right? This is the lowest form of government. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the community touches its government. It's clearly here, right? I'm a private citizen. You're a private citizen. We all are here. I'm availing myself. If I get elected, I'll now be part of the government, right, for a short period of time, and then I'll leave, and somebody else have the opportunity to come do this. And this is how this works, right? This is the lowest level. This is where the government meets the road. We want to make sure that our people are engaged in the decisions, and you have some effect and influence on what happens. Right? This is community engagement. That's a huge part of the role as being the mayor, and making sure that we stay in touch with what needs to be done in the county. Right? We want to make sure that our citizens are actively engaged, community engagement, in the decisions that are being made. A number of different ways to do this. So it's not only just through meetings and discussions, it's through asking people to serve on special commissions and boards, especially with stakeholders in the community for important decisions. We want to make sure that, and we all want to feel like we have some input in what happens. We don't want to see decisions and things just made and we feel like we have no connection to it. It's not American. We want to be very involved in this and feel that we're not just feel that we are, but know that our input counts and that we have an impact on the decisions that are made. I think this is an important time that we face for a number of different reasons. Mostly because of the fact that there are so many economic opportunities available to us today that we are just not taking advantage of. It's very important that we try to improve our situation while it's good. Make hay while the sun shines. The sun's shining, we're not making any hay, and we should be. We need to be careful in this, though, that we don't sacrifice what's best. The natural beauty of this place, the natural resources that are here, the things that we love about why we came to live here. We don't want to sacrifice that for a water park or 6 more public access points on the Duck River or these kinds of things. We don't want people coming through here and making this the garbage heap for Williamson County. That's not what we want to do. If we're not careful about that, and some of the other candidates and so forth doing different things, I think, to try and garner support, but we need to make sure that we do not sell ourselves out for a little bit of gain for somebody. So it's important that we try and do the right things here. We have the opportunities here to make some positive difference in terms of how we improve the tax base of our community, how we improve the opportunities that exist here for young people, how we improve the educational system and opportunities. We need places here in this county of higher education of some kind, technical training. It needs to be significantly different than it is today. Our county needs to be better educated. We need to be more skilled so that we can do more things, so that we can work closer to home and continue to make sure that this place is a wonderful place to live. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.